Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Bava Kamma. We are up to Perek Chet Mishnah Zayin. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'elun Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana, Ranbai Veliyahu ben Burchai Israelov, Chana ben Miriam, Sason ben Rai, and Yoshua ben Shifra, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen, and Avdi ben Chaim Lechaim, for the Refuah Shenemav, Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, and the Achlama Mera, Binyamin, Or Tzion Chai ben Dvorah. The Mishnah teaches what an attacker must do in order to be forgiven by God for the sin of hurting a person. Afal pishu notenlo, even though he gives his victim the 5 payments, en nimchalo achi vekesh mimenu, he is not forgiven by God until he asks for forgiveness from the victim. The 5 payments discussed in this chapter are only monetary compensations for the damage done to the victim. The grief and anguish that he suffered, however, cannot be relieved with money. The attacker must therefore appease the victim and ask his forgiveness. In fact, this is true of all sins against another person. God does not forgive the sinner until the person he has wronged forgives him. Shenemar, as it is stated, Ve'ata hashev eshet v'gomer. God came to Avimelech in a dream by night and said to him, behold, you are going to die because of the woman Sarah you have taken, and she is a married woman. But now, return the man's wife, etc. For he, Abraham, is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. This is in the book of Bereshit, chapter 20, verse 3 and verse 9. When Abraham and Sarah traveled to Gerar, a Philistine city, Avimelech, the king of Gerar, sent messengers to take Sarah and bring her to him. So Avimelech, the king of Gerar, sent messengers to take Sarah and bring her to him. However, God prevented him from touching her and struck his household with a plague. God also appeared to Avimelech in a dream and warned him that he would die if he did not return Sarah to Abraham. Again, book of Bereshit, chapter 20. The verse implies that it was not enough for Avimelech to merely return Sarah to Abraham. He also had to ask Abraham's forgiveness until Abraham would forgive him so wholeheartedly that he would even pray on Avimelech's behalf, as the Meiri explains. Uminayin shelo yeh mochel achzari. And from where do we know that the victim should not be cruel and refuse to forgive? Shenemar, as it is stated over there in verse 17, Vayitpalel Avraham el Elohim vayirpa Elohim et Avimelech v'gomer. Avraham prayed to God and God healed Avimelech, etc. Avraham indeed forgave Avimelech and prayed on his behalf. So too, anyone who suffers at the hands of others should forgive them when they ask for forgiveness. Since Avraham set the example of forgiving Avimelech, his descendants are expected to follow in his ways. A victim who does not forgive his attacker is cruel because he thereby shows that he does not care about the heavenly punishment the attacker will otherwise suffer. The Mishnah moves to a new subject, namely where one person asks another to injure him. If one person said to another, blind my eye or cut off my hand or break my leg, and the other person did so, chayav, the attacker is obligated to pay for the injury even though the victim asked him to injure him because the victim was not serious. It is common knowledge that no one really wants to be injured, as the Rambam writes in Ilchot Chovel Umazik, chapter 5, Halacha 11. Therefore, if someone asks to be injured, he surely did not mean it, but was speaking only out of distress or anger, or he was joking. Ad menat liftor. Moreover, even if the attacker replied, when you asked me to injure you, did you mean to exempt me from liability? And the victim said, yes, chayav. The attacker is obligated to pay because a person is unlikely to want to suffer pain and therefore did not seriously mean to exempt the attacker. Also, although the victim said yes, he was presumably expressing astonishment, meaning, do you really think I'm exempting you from payment? This ruling applies only where the attacker asked whether he would be exempt and the victim agreed. But if the victim said explicitly, injure me and you will not be liable, the attacker would be exempt since the victim clearly exempted him. The law is different when one person asks another to damage his possessions. Kirat kisuti shevot kadi. If one person said to another, tear my garment or break my jug, and the other person did so, chayav, the damager is obligated to pay for the damage because the owner was not serious. Now, the Mishnah refers only to a case where the owner had asked the other person to watch the property. When that person committed himself to be a watchman, a shomer, he accepted liability for damage that might occur in the future. In this situation, if the owner later said break it, he did not mean to exempt him from payment. Rather, he meant you may break it, but you will have to pay for it. Al menat liftor. But if the damager replied, when you asked me to damage your property, did you mean to exempt me from liability? Then even if the owner said no, patur, the damager is not obligated to pay because it is not unusual for a person to forgo payment for damage to his possessions. Since he already said, tear my garment, we interpret no as an expression of astonishment, meaning, do you really think that I will hold you liable? In a related case, if one person said to another, do this damage to so-and-so or to his possessions, even if he adds, and I intend to exempt you from liability, meaning I will pay for the damage. Now, the Mishnah says, Chayav ben begufo b'mamonot. The damager is obligated to pay whether he damaged the victim's body or his possessions. One person cannot exempt a second person from payments that he incurs for damaging a third person. The damager must therefore pay. In fact, only the one who did the damage is liable, while the one who sent him is exempt. Although the actions of an agent are usually viewed as though they were done by the one who sent him, that rule does not apply where the agent was asked to do a sin, such as injuring a person or damaging his property, what we call en shedech lidvar avera. Nevertheless, the man who sent him is a wicked man, because he misled his fellow and encouraged him to sin, as the Rambam writes in Echot Chovel Umazik, chapter 5, Alachat 13. That is the end of chapter 8, Mishnah 7. We continue now with chapter 9, Mishnah 1. The Torah states in the book of Vayikra, chapter 5, verse 23, Veshivet gzela shel gazal, he shall return the stolen property that he stole. Here the Torah commands the thief to return the stolen article to the owner. However, by adding the words that he stole, the verse teaches that he must return the stolen article only if it is still the one that he stole. If it has changed since then, the thief acquires it and pays its monetary value to the owner. The first four Mishnayot of this chapter define how much the article must change in order for the thief to acquire it. The Kinyan, the acquisition discussed here, should not be confused with the Kinyanim we discussed earlier in chapter 7, Mishnot 5 and 6. There, the subject was the Kinyan through which one who stole something becomes subject to the obligations of a thief. For example, he must pay the double payment, and if he stole an ox or a sheep and then slaughtered or sold it, he must make the fourfold or fivefold payment. At that point, though, the stolen item does not belong to the thief, and if it is still available, he must return it. Here, however, the discussion is about a change in the item that makes it the thief's property. He is then allowed to keep it and pay the owner money instead. The laws presented in the following Mishnot apply both to the Ganav and the Gazlan, which we mentioned earlier in chapter 8, Mishnah 1 in the introduction. The Mishnah begins, Agozel etzim v'asan kelim. If someone steals pieces of wood and makes them into utensils, tzemer v'asan begadim, or if he steals wool and makes it into garments, he does not have to return the utensils or the garments. Mishalem kishat gzela. Rather, he pays according to what the wool or wood was worth at the time of the robbery. Since the item that he stole changed into something else, he acquires it and he pays the owner what it was worth when he stole it. These changes cannot be reversed. He stole a raw piece of wood and planned it to make it into a utensil, or he stole raw wool and made it into felt. Felt is a fabric created by pressing fibers of wool together. Although the Mishnah says garments, it refers to felt, which is used in making garments. In these cases, the wood and wool can never go back to what they were at the time of the theft, and their names have changed. The wood is now called utensil, and the wool is now called felt. The combination of these two changes makes a stolen item into something new, which the thief need not return because it is not the item that he stole. If the change is reversible, the thief does not acquire the item, even if its name changed. For example, he stole planks of wood that were already planned and nailed them together to make a utensil, or he stole threads of wool and wove them into cloth. Since he could take the utensil apart or unravel the cloth, he must do so and return the planned wood or the wooden threads or the woolen threads to the owner. On the other hand, there are cases in which the physical change is so great the thief acquires the item even if its name remains the same. That's going to be the next Mishnah. Gazal para meuberet v'yalda. If someone stole a pregnant cow and it gave birth, Rachel teuna ugzaza. Or if he stole a sheep laden with wool and he sheared it, he does not have to return the calf for the wool. Mishalem demei para omedet leled. Rather, he pays the value of a cow that is ready to give birth. Demei Rachel omedet ligazez, or the value of a ewe that is ready to be shorn. Meaning, he returns the cow or the sheep as it is, and he pays the difference between what it is worth now and what it was worth when it was stolen, when the cow was pregnant and the sheep still had its wool. Since the animal remained basically the same and did not change significantly, he does not acquire it and he must return it. However, he does not have to return the newborn calf or the wool because it changed completely, going from fetus to calf or from part of a sheep to detached wool. For example, if a cow was worth 100 zuz, a pregnant cow 130 zuz, and a calf 50 zuz, the robber would return the cow itself, pay 30 zuz, and keep the 50 zuz calf. The extra 20 zuz, which is the amount the fetus increased in value when it was born, belongs to the thief, since he acquired the calf to its change. It was previously a fetus and then became a newborn animal. Gazal para v'nitabra etzlo v'yalda. If someone stole a cow and it became pregnant while it was still with him and then it gave birth, achel v'nitana etzlo ugzaza. Or if he stole a ewe and it became laden with wool while it was with him and then he sheared it, Mishlem kishat gzera, he pays according to what it was worth at the time of the robbery, meaning he returns the cow or the ewe itself since it did not change. Although the cow became pregnant while in his possession, it's not considered a physical change in the cow. Just as a pregnant cow that gives birth is not considered to have changed, like we mentioned earlier. He must therefore return the cow, but he keeps the calf or the wool, which did not even exist until after the robbery. The Mishnah states the general rule for a stolen article that changed in value after the theft. This is the rule. All robbers pay according to what the stolen property was worth at the time of the robbery. The Mishnah mentions this rule again in order to teach that a thief can acquire the stolen item even through a small change, as long as the change is irreversible and its name also changes. For example, if he stole a lamb that then grew into a ram at the age of 13 months, or a calf that then grew into an ox at the age of 2 years, he thereby acquires it. If he slaughters or sells the grown animal, he is exempt from the fourfold or fivefold payment because it was his when he slaughtered or sold it. He needs to pay the owner only the amount the animal was worth when it was stolen, and if a double payment is required, he pays twice that amount. And that is an Abutai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.